McLaren's 2023 season ended up being one of the most impressive in-season developments witnessed in recent years with their MCL60. But this will be a season they will no doubt look back upon as a what could have been scenario if they hadn't started in such a compromised position. Now, there are three major areas McLaren must improve upon with their MCL38 to take that final step to become genuine contenders for race wins on a regular basis. The first of those areas is starting the season having hit all of their winter targets. But before we get into that, I want to know all of your thoughts on McLaren's season and the MCL60. Did you think it was a successful season, or do you think it was one with a lot of mistapped potential? Let me know in the comments down below. Right, back to the video. When McLaren's challenger, the MCL60 debuted, newly appointed team principal Andrea Stella immediately said he and the team were not entirely happy with what they had achieved with their challenger before even a competitive lap had been raced. Why Stella made the comments became clear during Friday's lunchtime press conference in pre-season testing. He explained that it was simply down to missing key development targets. Last year we had some clear objectives in terms of development. They had to do with aerodynamic efficiency, some development related to the exploitation of the tyres, and also some other objectives to improve the balance. The reality is that most of these objectives have actually been met, but the objective in terms of aerodynamic efficiency of the car, that's the one where we are still shy of what was our target. And this was apparent with the sheer number of upgrades that they brought throughout the course of the season, with major revisions taking place to the floor, side pods, diffuser and front ring. Before we move on, if you're currently enjoying the content you're watching, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, as I will be doing a lot more of these types of videos, as well as covering all of the pre-season testing from the 21st to the 23rd of February, as well as, of course, the entire 2024 Formula 1 season. Right, let's get back to the main portion of the video. And as for the poor aerodynamic efficiency, essentially what that means is it's about when a F1 car produces too much drag at any given set downforce level. And this is the exact opposite of what any team up and down the grid wants, which is a maximum downforce for the corners and minimum drag for all the straights. So the natural problem with a car which is draggy is that they're going to be slow in a straight line, and thus this compromises the team into making forced changes to their downforce levels in a bid to minimize the deficit. And to do that, you basically have to run less downforce, which makes things harder in braking, and you're going to naturally be slower through all the corners. And this is just the spiral of negativity that McLaren found itself trapped in right at the beginning of the season, with a car that it knows can theoretically be better around the corners and therefore faster overall on a single lap if they went in that direction, but they would actually be slower around the lap because of the time lost on the straights. And that's what all the major upgrades were helping to rectify throughout the season. Of course, as well as having other benefits with them. And for any team looking to have a competitive season where they are constantly challenging at the sharp end of the grid, they just can't start any season in such a manner, as it leaves them with far too much ground to claw back throughout a season for them to have any chance of fighting for race wins and pole positions on a consistent basis. This, unfortunately, was the major stumbling block and story of McLaren's 23 season, as even by September's Japanese Grand Prix, they claimed they hadn't hit 50% of their targets with the MCL60. And it wasn't until round 10 in Austria did they actually begin to start to claw back the performance that they wanted to have at the start of their season, with their first major upgrade to the MCL60. The Friday of the Austrian Grand Prix, McLaren unveiled its first round of changes, which includes, as you can see in the picture, a fully redesigned floor, side pod and engine cover. The floor inevitably interacts with the rest of the bodywork, which means McLaren had to also redesign the side pod and engine cover to improve the flow conditioning to the floor and increase aerodynamic load. The primary target is improving, as previously mentioned, its aerodynamic efficiency and thus the team's ability to add downforce to the car without incurring any excessive drag penalties. This lack of efficiency has not only cost lap time up until that particular point in the season, but it also hindered Norris's and Piastri's ability to race their rivals due to a lack of top speed. And it was through this first major update, as well as subsequent ones at the British, Hungarian and Singapore Grand Prix, that really helped to propel them forward to the front of the grid on a consistent basis, arguably being the third fastest team in the second half of the year. And this is no mean feat to snuff our noses at, as what they managed to accomplish has to be one of the most impressive in-season development rates in modern times. It's just a shame that they couldn't start the year in the manner with which they wanted to and not be 6 months behind their schedule. This is a major area they need to get on top of for 2024 and the MCL38. One area that all of these developments never managed to cure was their inherent weakness in slow speed corners. Now you could say this has become somewhat of a common design hang-up that has been evident within all their recent challenges, which predates even the current ground effects era of F1. And this is something Lando Norris himself has identified as a particular weakness of all the McLaren cars he's driven in the past 5 seasons. And with pretty much all the tracks on the calendar having their fair share of slow corners, this has to be addressed. A very good example of where they struggle would be at the Hungaroring, where even after their first major update in Austria, they found themselves once again losing time in the twisty, slow speed corners. And the conundrum the team currently faces with setting their MCL60 up is how far in a particular direction they take it. If, for example, they are aiming to set the car up more towards the medium and slow speed corners of a circuit, they tend to have a much harder time in the high speed, which is a huge strength of theirs. Stella likens it to that of a blanket, translating the Italian way of saying, I will say our blanket is a little short, so if we center the car for medium and low speed, then we have some other issues in high speed. There's a lot of compromise at play. The work we are undertaking for next year is to make this blanket quite a bit longer. As for how McLaren could go about solving this issue, Norris himself has pointed towards an aerodynamic weakness, which would be the obvious approach, though he feels his team need to look deeper than that. To further his point, he states even if the MCL60 had equal load to the dominant Red Bull RB19 through the slow speed corners, he doubts the MCL60 has the right characteristics to take full advantage of it. And finally, we bring ourselves to the last area of improvement that the team need and actually have been targeting with both the MCL60 and 61, and that is their beam ring / DRS efficiency, with Red Bull's rivals now having cottoned on to the fact that the RB19's DRS is so effective because of the drag balance between the rear ring mainplane and beam ring. McLaren began pursuing this path too, particularly since the Belgium Grand Prix, as McLaren, like most other teams, were left in the wake of Red Bull's supercharged DRS, which was particularly powerful between the entry to Eau Rouge and the end of the Kemmel Straight. For instance, Red Bull found 12.7 miles per hour there, while McLaren only managed to gain 9.5 in comparison. So overall, McLaren have a lot of work to do to catch up to the mighty Red Bull RB19, let alone the RB20. But with the team being very confident in finding huge gains over the winter, as well as in the new upcoming 24 season, I believe McLaren are probably the best placed team to challenge Red Bull on an extremely consistent basis. Right guys, that is the video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.